This morning on The Dish, a journey through the history of food with one of the most famous food writers in the country. Mark Bittman's written dozens of cookbooks, but now he's out with something different. It's called Animal Vegetable Junk, a revealing look at how our diet has changed for better and worse over thousands of years. It's also a call for what Bittman thinks should come next. Pick the one most important factor in shaping human history: war, disease, money. Mark Bittman says it's food.
It's a story that needed to be told. I feel that it's silly to say people don't think about food. Of course, we all think about food all the time, but we don't take it seriously.
In his new book, Animal Vegetable Junk, A History of Food from Sustainable to Suicidal, Bittman traces the progression of our modern diet from hunter-gatherers to today's monolithic industrial farms that dominate global food production. He argues there have been three historic stages of sustenance: the birth of growing, the 20th century, and he says change.
Somewhere on some fertile acre, the plow knifes through soil that abounds in promise.
Food, no surprise, really changed when humans were able to move beyond hunting into farming. Bittman says the Industrial Revolution transformed farms into factories, led by inventions like John Deere's steel-bladed plow in the 1830s. A century later, modern machinery helped free up 70 million acres of land for food production.
The right amount of tractor power is the answer to increasing the profit in a large farming operation.
At the same time, scientific innovation increased yield. America now had a surplus of food, and another emerging industry, television, to help sell it.
Whenever you see that gold medal sack being used,
That was supported by a Department of Agriculture that devised a nutritional system around the surplus.
Bread and butter or margarine, milk and cheese, meat and eggs, vegetables, and fruits.
To help make the most of these wonder years, serve nutritious, wonder-enriched bread.
White bread, fortified with vitamins to replace the highly nutritional but easily spoiled whole grains, quickly became the norm.
There's two kinds of agriculture. You can grow food to sell it, in which case you don't really care what it is because you're just selling it. All you want is, am I making more money selling this than that? And that tells you the answer. Or you can grow food to feed yourself or feed other people. And that's a dividing line.
Our first dish is a good example of early agriculture.
This is a sort of Mayan-inspired or Mesoamerican-inspired stew. You know,
a form of farming called milpa, or three sisters.
And the three sisters are corn, squash, and beans. The corn grows straight up. It provides a pole for the beans, and the squash provides shade to retain moisture for everything, and the beans help fix nitrogen in the soil. So they're a kind of cover crop. So those three things can be grown together quite sustainably.
And this is better than that.
I mean, this is the perfect representation of 19th and early 20th century processed food. You have your white bread. So you have bread that's completely devoid of nutrients except for whatever nutrients you've put back in. You have your industrially produced meat, uses resources disproportionately, encourages the growth of corn and soybeans and very little else. You have cheese, a direct result of the dairy surplus. And then what do we do with it? Oh, here, we'll do this. A public health disaster represented by a cheeseburger.
But don't get mad at me, it tastes good.
Well, I know you love it. I like cheeseburgers too. Trust me, it's not a problem. We learned to like cheeseburgers. I grew up eating cheeseburgers.
Yeah. Ever since 1921, people have enjoyed White Castle hamburgers.
Easy food like this has been advertised almost non-stop for decades.
I'm not hungry! You're having one more bite. No, one more bite!
Efforts to regulate what can or cannot be marketed specifically to kids have largely been ineffective, especially now that they do most of their viewing on streaming devices.
No one's really regulating what food companies market to kids online. Before they're really capable of knowing the difference between right and wrong, that good food, fun food, comes in colorful packages sold by cartoon characters and usually contains a lot of sugar. Until we start teaching 4-year-olds what real food is, how to eat it, how to enjoy it, what it takes to prepare it, then we're going to have 40-year-olds who are conflicted about, oh, I know what good food is, but I grew up eating Fruit Loops, and sometimes you just want a bowl.
All of that brings us to Bittman's third and final stage in food history, change.
In a way, you could see it all as a great experiment. How is a human race of 6, 7, 10 billion people going to support itself? And that question, in a way, has been answered. We can produce enough food for those people. Now the question's a little more refined. How do we produce enough food for those people and make them healthy, all of them or most of them? And how do we produce enough food for those people and not destroy the planet? Those two questions have to be answered in the next X years.
Which is why today obesity and its related illnesses is a much bigger problem for most of the world than hunger is, which is not to say hunger is still not a problem in some places. But that's the big question, is how do you get kids on that track of like eating the best stuff?
Real food. Real food.
A bowl of Fruit Loops is still okay every once in a while. Most people still like cheeseburgers, but generally speaking, how do you balance it out, right?
Well, so much of our food is not good for the planet.